Hello everyone, I'm Adam from Aleph Zero. The counter is not on yet, but I think I can start. So I think most of you have heard about zero knowledge technology. It's getting traction in the last years. So most people, when think about zero knowledge, think about either scalability or private transfers. During the talk, I'm gonna focus on privacy, although, as the title suggests, not only transfers. Before we dig deeper, let us set up the stage a little bit. So I'm not sure whether these are like common definitions. These are the definitions I found. I found in ISO standards. So there are three flavors in which privacy can come. The first one is pseudonymity. And this is the default flavor that everyone is kind of used to in blockchains. So most of the time we don't put our legal name in our address. We just have an address, which is kind of our pseudonym. This is how it has been on Bitcoin. This is how it works on basically every chain. So it's nice that we are not easily doxed immediately. Although what is not nice is that, for example, whenever we interact with someone, for example, we send funds to buy something in a shop, then the person we're buying from can backtrack the transaction and peek into our wallet. And well, everyone who played around with Etherscan knows that if you do that, basically you can see every historical transaction a given wallet ever did. So, well, there is some privacy to it, although not all that much. This is like intuitively, this is not something that we expect from financial systems. So whenever we send funds to someone, this person will know our entire transaction history. This is very unwanted behavior, and unfortunately, very, very common in modern blockchains. So the second property is anonymity. It's much stronger. So that basically means that, well, as the name suggests, we can do stuff anonymously. So whenever someone looks at the blockchain from outside, this person will be able to see what happens. For example, that someone traded on Uniswap Ether for USDT or something like that. But there will be no way of telling who did that, even by pseudonym or even by address. So this transaction then would be unlinkable to any other transaction. So, like, for personal reasons, this is already good enough to feel comfortable with our transactions because, like, this interacting with another party does not reveal our history anymore. So it hides our personal detail with some exceptions. For example, if we deal with a very exotic asset and we are a major holder in this exotic asset, then the fact that this asset has been transferred by itself can reveal our identity. The same goes, for example, for voters with high voting power in specific votings. They can also be doxed by the sole fact that this particular voting power opted for a specific option. So even stronger flavor of privacy is, well, privacy, which means that that it's not even seen from outside what actually happened. So in this case, what is seen for the outside observer is that, well, someone did something on chain, but it's not possible to see whether it was a trade or what kind of trade was that. This is very, very strong flavor and very, very uncommon. So I'm gonna discuss the difference and trade-offs somewhere between anonymity and privacy during the talk. So the first primitive, which is pretty common and comes in various names, is what we call shielder in Aleph Zero. So this primitive allows users to transact anonymously. The first instantiation of shielding idea was done by Zcash, and probably most of you know that in Zcash you can do public transactions as on normal chains, as seen here. So there is, for example, Alice transferring some funds to Edgar in the upper left corner. But there is this special place in the middle where, well, there are some transactions there, but they are fully concealed. So like there is some crypto magic happening, which does not allow outside observers to see what happens there. So like in practice, inside of this magical box, like the same things are happening. So the tokens are being transferred from one account to another account. But this is just concealed by zero-knowledge technology. I'm not going to go into cryptographic details on that. I just want to discuss the properties during the talk. So as you can see, users are able to go inside of this magical box and outside, and whatever happens inside of the box is concealed. So, for example, for the outside observer, it's not even clear whether these arrows going out are from the same users, or maybe there was transfer going on inside, and there is another user actually doing the withdrawal. This is obfuscated. In our case, we call this shielder Liminal, the bigger product which deals with privacy in Aleph Zero. And one of the nice things, one of the nice directions which is being explored recently, is interaction between this shielder thing and DeFi. So in Zcash example and the historical examples of privacy, these systems were able only to support regular transactions. So users were able to do normal value transfers between accounts. What is being explored right now are interactions between shielder and DeFi. So, for example, a user which has some tokens inside of the shielder is able to initiate the transfer to decentralized exchange and get the tokens back into the shielder. So basically, the shielder can be treated as a private wallet of sorts. So user can keep all the tokens at all times inside of the shielder, and whenever user wants to use some DeFi contract, the action can be initiated from inside. And what's even better, these contracts, they do not need to be privacy enhancing in any specific way. So if that would be deployed on Ethereum, you could use like the regular, normal implementation of Uniswap, just initiate the action from the shielder. So it goes the same for Aleph Zero. You don't need to specifically think about enabling this kind of private interactions. You can write your contract any way you would write it for regular DeFi, and the users which are using the shielder will be able to use it anyway. So that sounds pretty good already, because but coming back to our properties, this allows for anonymity. It does not give you privacy, because maybe I didn't say that explicitly, but while you initiate the action from the shielder, the action itself is not private, it's public. So everyone sees how many tokens are leaving the shielder, what happens in the DEX, because as I said, this is a pretty regular DEX. It's not a privacy enhancing DEX in any way. So this thing is public. How many tokens went into the DEX and how many tokens went outside of the DEX. This is, as I said, already pretty good, although it has some limitations. For example, the trading of exotic assets can be revealing for some of the users. Front running is much easier if these things are public. And generally, the sole fact of placing an order can cause a market to panic, even before the order is executed, which is also unwanted behavior. So what we're working on right now is allowing some additional privacy on top of that. And I'm going to quickly go through two instantiations of this additional privacy on top of a shielder. So the first one is voting. Here is the naive private voting. So, like maybe at the first glance it seems kind of unrelated, but to the shielder itself. But actually, you can think about votes as tokens, as tokens representing voting power, and then. Well, you can, of course, put these tokens into shielder, because you can put any tokens into the shielder. And then you can initiate actions, meaning vote for some options from the shielder. In the naive way, it would look like that. So outside observer would see every transaction. So they would go for, like, let's say in simplified case, there will be a separate contracts counting yes and no votes. So everyone would see how many votes and how big voting power voted for yes and how big voting power voted for no. And it has several problems. First is users with big voting powers can be doxed in this way. And even bigger problem is voting backrunning. So the problem is that the result of voting is visible at all times. So this is pretty unwanted, because then the winning strategy for a voter is to wait for a very last block before the voting ends and cast a vote only then, when all the other votes are already known. Of course, there are solutions to circumvent it. If you, anyone who knows how parachain auctions works, like yes, there are some clever ways to go around it. But what we would try to achieve is much more direct way of circumventing the voting backrunning. So doing something like that. Sorry for small font. The idea here is that instead of doing regular withdrawal from the shielder, what we allow to do cryptographically is to publish an encryption, a homomorphic encryption of our vote. So on previous slide, we had the first user, the top arrow, casting 9 votes for option yes. Here, instead of that, this user publishes encryption of 9-0, meaning 9 votes going for yes, 0 votes going for no. And once all the users do that, like once the time for voting is over, then only what we do, we aggregate all this, we on-chain aggregate all these encryptions. Well, they are homomorphic encryptions additively, so it's possible to aggregate them into a single encryption. In this case, it's an encryption of 11 and 13. And only this end result is ever being decrypted. So like the general public, or actually no one in the world, ever learns any of the particular votes. What is only being ever revealed is the final outcome of the voting, which is 11 for yes and 13 for no in this example. Of course, there's a question, so okay, it's encryption, so who actually decrypts this encryption? So the answer is there is a specific committee. It's a threshold encryption. So there is a big committee of key holders, and they need to collaborate to decrypt the aggregate. And there is incentive mechanism disincentivizing decryption of anything else. So in particular, if anyone ever tries to decrypt anything else with the final outcome, he gets slashed for some collateral. So like we can assume that in practice, only the final outcome will get ever decrypted. So this is the first example of how to use this additional privacy by this added encryption thing. And the second one is common, the product, the exchange product that we're working on. Since we started with the example of a DEX, this is also a DEX, but somewhat different, somewhat more private, you could say. And also with a bit different experience, because it works mainly with limit orders rather than direct trades. So what users do is putting an order of type, I would like to trade this amount of USDT for a zero at some specific price. And what is public here, it's not entirely private. It's value private, in the sense that the rules of the order are public. So what pair of tokens is being traded is public, and the price is public. What is not public is the value of the order. So it may seem as not so much privacy, but when you think about it, it's pretty easy to conceal such an order book by placing empty orders for whatever pair and whatever price you choose. So you can put arbitrarily many orders for value 0 or for very small values, and then outside observer will not be able to tell which of the orders are actual meaningful orders and which are empty ones. So we build this order book based on this homomorphic encryption idea, similarly as it used to be in the voting example. So the values of the order are now homomorphically encrypted. Then, periodically, we construct a batch of orders. So we query the price from the oracle, the current price of for the particular pair, and we take all the orders that let's say are OK with this price, and we aggregate them into a batch. Then the batch is being revealed. So we never reveal a single order. We always reveal only the aggregate, only the batch. So the users can feel pretty comfortable with the fact that no one will backtrack their particular order. Only the batch is revealed. And additionally, there is an additional economic benefit here, because as, for example, in this example, or like most of the times, it was going to be this way that there will be orders for both directions of the pair. So what we can do is, before we actually execute the trade, we can do initial internal trades, which are at optimal price. So whatever price was queried from the oracle, we can basically exchange the counterparties in the same batch at this price. And only then, after we have this preprocessed batch, we can go with it to the regular AMM DEX. So the entire rest of the batch is regularly traded on the DEX at the best price we can find. And like the outcome, like once the entire batch is traded, the outcome goes back to the shielder, and the users are able to claim their part of the trade. So in particular, we guarantee that all the users trading the same site gets the same price, regardless of whether their tokens have been traded on the second or third stage of this process. And summing up the properties, so this kind of DEX never reveals individual orders. It's while it's not entirely private, because the prices in the orders are public, it's pretty easy to obfuscate the order book. So actually, it is pretty private. And it allows for internal in-batch trades at optimal price. So it allows users to trade at better prices on average than if they would just go to a regular AMM. I think we have still 2 minutes, so if anyone has a question, I think that's a good time. Otherwise, thank you for listening. Yes?
Hello, have you faced any regulatory problems with encrypting order books? Because there may be some malicious source of funds or something.
So that's a very good question. There are, of course, a lot of problems when it comes to the shielder itself, if used for mixing purposes. What is important to notice here is that the interaction between shielder and DeFi, in this interaction, no value is changing hands, meaning that if you have your account inside of a shielder and then put some order, the tokens from this order go back to you. There is no way of mixing funds here. So basically, yes, there are some regulatory problems when it comes to deploying shielder itself, but fortunately, that doesn't aggregate, or like they don't get bigger because we do more complex stuff. Like that kind of stays at the same level of complexity as the usual shielder. And for this, we are working on ZK ID system for fault attributability.
I'm new to Polkadot, but I'm just curious. So this is on Polkadot, right?
So right now we are building on Substrate, and right now we are a sovereign chain because we are using a different consensus. We have also much faster block time, but we do have a parachain slot, and we're gonna use the parachain slot for the bridging purposes. So it's gonna be able to use this DEX from other parachains by the same message passing protocol, although like strictly formally, we're not gonna be parachain.
So could this be censored the same way the tornado cache was censored on Ethereum, like with the Infura or whatever?
Censored, of course, block producers could collude to censor transactions. Although, as I said, we didn't deploy the shielder on the mainnet yet, and the reason for that is that we are working on this ZK ID system. So we really want to protect ecosystem from money laundering, and yeah, but like if we deploy, it's gonna be with these safeguards against direct money laundering.
Okay, thank you so much, Adam.
Thank you.
Please, applause to Adam.